In this video, I'm going to show you how to construct a simple human character and how to import it into Unity. I'm also going to show you how to make it blink. I'm going to construct my characters using MakeHuman. Go to the download page. Select Download Latest Stable Release. On the next page, select Download Windows. Open the zip file, copy out the contents of the zip file to a temporary directory and run the exe file. Just choose the defaults. If I look in here, I can see there is an additional folder, Add-ons for Blender 2.8. I'll come back to that later. Before I run up MakeHuman, here is what I will be creating. A European British female with modest, understated, smart casual clothing. But I also want the clothing to be distinctive, so the character can be easily distinguished from others in the target application. If you've seen my 8-part video series Endangered, this will be Chris Taylor for the game. When I run MakeHuman, I am presented with the following screen, which shows us a fairly androgynous human character. The first thing I'm going to do is go to Geometries, Clothes, and put on Pants Harem. I'm doing this because I've been warned that YouTube's algorithms can block videos containing these nude screenshots. I didn't want to encounter that and have to redo the whole video. As it turned out, it didn't get flagged. Ho-hum, I'll know for future reference. Normally, I wouldn't do any clothing until later, so I'll introduce you to where Pants Harem came from at the appropriate point in the workflow. Now, we are targeting Unity, so there are a few steps I want to carry out early because they are needed for every model I'm going to use. If we go to Pose, Animate, Skeleton, I'm going to choose Unity. This is a simple rig which allows basic movement, including such things as blinking the eyes and opening and closing the mouth in sync with voice audio clips. I'll deal with these head animations later in this video. Pose. I'm going to choose T-Pose from the bottom of the list. Under Geometries, Eyes, I'm going to select Low Poly. In my applications, the eyes will rarely, if ever, be viewed close up, so there's no point wasting resource with high poly eyes. Teeth. Yes, I'll need teeth, because they will be seen just as the character speaks, so I'll use base teeth. Topologies. There are 3 female options. 1605, which is very low poly and does look rather ugly. Female generic, which looks reasonable. And female muscle, which, quite frankly, looks ridiculous. Given my female, once clothed, will only have hands and head visible, I'll go for the female generic option. Next, I'm going to choose my materials. For the eyes, I'm going to choose grey. For skin, I'm going to choose Young Caucasian Female 2. Now let's move on to the more detailed modelling. Modelling Main. I want a slim Caucasian female, so I'll set Caucasian to 100%. I don't want an overly exaggerated female form, so I'll set the gender to 70% female, 30% male. I'll set the muscle to about 60%, weight to 80%, and I'll leave proportions at the default. Lastly, I want to set the height to 1.8 meters. The remaining tabs under Modelling are fairly self-explanatory. Gender. Breasts. Fairly obvious for a female character, so I'll leave it at the default values. And where it says genitals, it means the male variety, which is irrelevant to my female character, and all my male characters will be clothed, so I'll ignore this too. Face. Many tweaks to the face shape and features can be made here. It's a matter of playing to get what you want. I'm not going to waste time in this video showing you all the tweaks I'll be making to the face for my model. Torso. You can control the body shape here. Once again, I'm happy with the defaults. Arms and legs, and of course, hands and feet. Randomize. I assume the purpose here is to allow the quick generation of different looking characters. In my case, I'm primarily using hair and clothes to distinguish my characters. Custom. I've downloaded some custom extensions. For example, the elf ears proved useful when generating an alien character. I'll come on to download shortly. Measure allows the tweaking of sizes of various parts of the body. You can create some quite grotesque characters in this way. Once again, I'm happy with defaults. Now, let's move on to geometries. I'll start with the hair. Here I've decided to look for hair on the MakeHuman community page. I've chosen this hair. Go back to MakeHuman, go to the community page, select hair, and I'll enter the word front to narrow down the set, and then press the download button. We go back to hair, select the hair we've just downloaded. I did similar to download pants harem. As you can see, I have adjusted the texture colour, which I did using the GIMP image editor. And again with turtleneck, once again modifying the texture colour. I also wanted these painted fingernails. For some reason, under Community, this showed up as clothes. And finally, I applied shoes 3. I'm almost happy with this, except for where the skin is poking through the shirt round the neck and shoulders, and where the shirt interferes with the pants. We will deal with these issues in another tool. The time has come to export the model. Go to Files. First, we should save it. This is important because you might want to come back and edit it, and I've already saved a previous version, so I'll just use the same file name and overwrite it. Then we come to the actual export. Make sure you select MakeHuman Exchange as the file type and meter as the scale units. And export. And now we move on to Blender. Now, I have had version 2.82a of Blender on my machine for some time. The current latest version of Blender is 3.41. The MakeHuman add-ons are meant to work with any version of Blender from version 2.80 onwards. If you want to access one of the previous versions of Blender, they are all available here. Whichever version you decide to install, just choose the defaults. Now, do you remember the add-ons for Blender 2.8 which were included with the MakeHuman download? Now is the time to use them. We run up Blender and we go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, Install. Then we browse to where we downloaded, select the item we want to install and install it. I've already done this on mine. Scroll down here, you can see I've already got it installed. Once that is installed, now is the time to import our model from MakeHuman. First, let's delete these unwanted items, and then you have to press the N key, which brings up this menu in the top right of the main pane, and select the MHX2 Runtime tab. Press Import MHX2, and then we can browse to where we saved our model. Import it. Now if we go to Texture Paint, we can now see the colours as well. There we have our model looking pretty much as it was in MakeHuman. Near the top right, you can open up the hierarchy of the model. This allows us to get rid of those parts of the model which might otherwise get in the way of the parts we want to tweak. We click on the eye symbol to hide everything except the two main items of clothing which interfere. If we temporarily hide the top, we can see the pants are basically intact. Whereas if we hide the pants and show the top, we can see MakeHuman has chopped off those parts of the top which interfered with the pants. What we're going to do is shorten the top, removing those parts which interfere with the pants. So, let's display the mesh, and you can see that this really, here, is the line we want to follow around and make the bottom of our top, because that's complete all the way around. Now, I'll do all of this, but I'll run the video fast so it doesn't take too long for you sitting around watching what I'm doing. Select and use the delete key, selecting vertices, and the parts disappear. Now, if we show the pants again, we can see just a couple of points of interference. What we're going to do now is we're going to remove the top part of the pants, just the first couple of rows of the mesh, and that will mean there's less interference occurring. So, like before, I'll speed this up. Select a section at a time, press the delete key, and select vertices from the pop-up menu. Repeat this until level all the way round. Now, if we add the top again, we can see the interference has been reduced, but there is still some we need to sort out. So we're going to go back to looking at the mesh on the top. And what we do is select those parts which are interfering, and then we can very slightly pull those parts out. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Let's look round it to see if it is okay now. There seems to be a slight interference here at the back. So, once again, we select the section in question and pull it back slightly. What we can see now is we seem to have got rid of all the interference. Now show the body again. We want to delete those parts which are permanently hidden by clothing. That's basically below the neck and beyond the wrists. This will deal with the parts of the skin which are poking through the top, round the shoulders and neck. So we get rid of the clothing, display the mesh, and repeat our select and delete process. Now, if we reinstate the clothes, we can see that the skin is no longer poking through. Let's reinstate everything else. Make sure we are happy with it. It looks about right. Now we can export it as an FBX. I had previously saved this, so I'll just overwrite the old file. Now it's time to move on to importing it to Unity. Here we are in our sample program we created in video number 2. The cube is still disabled, so all we've got is the light and the play area. Down under Assets, I'm going to create a folder called MakeHuman. And in there, I'm going to drag in the Textures folder saved by MakeHuman and the FBX file we saved from Blender. Next, we select our FBX file, select Animation Type Humanoid, then go to Materials and Extract Materials. Create a folder called Materials to extract the materials into. And now let's drag our character into the scene. At this point, you can see there are no textures on the materials. So, let's open up the character. where each rendered part of the character appears as a child game object. In the project pane, go into the Textures folder, and now we can add the appropriate texture to each material. Copy in the main texture. For hair, set the rendering mode to fade. Our hair also has a normal map, so we also drag that in. Note the need to mark this texture as a normal map, so press Fix now. Also, we can see the hair is far too reflective, so we turn off reflections and specular highlights. We then repeat this for each of the rendered child game objects, which I'm going to speed up to avoid dragging out this video too long. Whilst most of these materials should be left as rendering mode opaque, all types of hair, which includes eyelashes and eyebrows, should use the fade rendering mode. And remember to turn off specular highlights and reflections on those surfaces which you don't want to be shiny. And there we have our character imported into Unity. Let's look close up at the face of our character. In the hierarchy pane, we'll chase down the children of the rig until we reach the head, whose children include the lower and upper eyelids on both sides. The eyelids are fully open in the default pose, and if we inspect the left eye, we can see the X rotation is -69 for the lower lid and -76.5 for the upper lid. It's easier to think in positive numbers, so by adding 360, -69 becomes 291, and -76.5 becomes 283.5. Substituting these numbers does not alter the eyelid position. By experimentation, I have found that a lower lid rotation of 280 and an upper lid rotation of 263 gives a pretty good approximation of closed eyes, certainly sufficient for a blink. I have prepared a script to provide a blinking behavior, so go to Head and add the blinking script in. Now we enter the rotations required for open and closed. So let's look at the code. First, the 4 public variables where we just entered the required rotations. In order to interpolate between fully open and fully closed, we declare multipliers. Next blink due should be pretty much self-explanatory. It is a timer which is set negative to the value in seconds until the next blink. Once it becomes positive, the blink is then performed over the next 160 milliseconds, with 80 milliseconds being mid-blink, when the eyelids are fully closed. Once the blink is complete, next blink due will be set to a new negative number. Blinks will occur at random intervals between 1.5 and 10 seconds. I have made next blink due public so we can inspect it, but it doesn't need to be public. The start function caches the game objects and the local angles representing the fully open position for each of the 4 eyelids. The multipliers are then derived, allowing interpolation between fully open and fully closed over 80 milliseconds. Finally, in the start function, the first blink is set to occur somewhere between 1.5 and 10 seconds after start. The update function adds delta time to next blink due. Once it becomes positive, the blink is underway. The target X rotations are initially set to fully open. If next blink due has exceeded 160 milliseconds, the blink is over. The target X rotations are correct, fully open, so all that needs to be done is set next blink due for the next blink. If next blink due is less than 160 milliseconds, the blink is still underway. The local variable blink time is derived from next blink due, initially counting from 0 to 80 milliseconds, which is mid-blink, eyes fully closed, and then counting back to 0. The target X rotations are then derived by adding the interpolated rotation delta. Finally, the new rotations are set. If we now run this, we can see next blink due counting upwards. And when it reaches 0, the blink occurs. This script is available for download. The link is in the video description. I had intended to include lip sync in this video, but this video ended up longer than I had expected, so lip sync will now be the subject of my next video.